Tivo Mahaba at about the POG political media and set not say on my Ghana and I say Ghana man you say moon same na so ababo no say you have some POG abia for no so no matter the ECOWAS on my Ghana man you sim na so na bebo e the right sim no share so subscribe to a POG Media and the ubo kwan so abjo subscription na wahye no for so answer so etimi aka dwumede bi no mo so no materi ekoso o my Ghana your political space ni na yepo e de wia yense ma na yepo e de wia eye ment me ho ase a eno so abo e de wia eye ECOWAS for akachi na ensem a chese ebobo ba no chese ano odin ye pa kame ago yese the president of the ECOWAS president of Nigeria, Tinùbú, the assembly, the Atuira, John Dramani, Mahama, and him say, Oshe, na Ibrahim Traore, and the other presidents are no more ECOWAS, ma almost so a ye or muti, a free, a yes, a organization, yasi, Oshe, na on convention, na on summer joining a year ECOWAS in the back. Na Ojina, a year. Relationship by John Dramani Mahama and Ibrahim Traore any other presidents are almost no more ECOWAS man almost a yomiti at the free muso and a day a year proposal Emma John Dramani Mahama still on share no convention no monsambra back to a day ECOWAS now in some at was no message say vegetable na yapo edira in some and I said anuya John Dramani Mahama edema a year the ECOWAS a year organization no
to whatever solution that we are going to have, but we must start with engagement.
I want to pick up on some of the keywords the president used during his address in Burkina Faso, pointing out that quote, it's trust has broken down between ECOWAS and obviously the Sahelian states. Can that trust really be repaired? Looking at the level of engagements you've seen over the last few days touring these countries.
That was the language of the leaders that we met. They indicated that trust had broken down. It's the basis for what took place, the formation of the AES. For instance, there was this example of the fact that they had been in quite some difficulty with terrorism and whatnot, and ECOWAS didn't come up to help them in any way. Like even sending some soldiers to go and help and whatnot. But immediately the difficulty, arose in Nigeria. They were ready to send soldiers there to go and fight. And all this while, they had not engaged them to identify what exactly was happening, how ECOWAS was going to be able to help.
So they're feeling neglected.
They felt, I would say, that they felt that there wasn't enough engagement. And so I would say that, well, it's good that the engagement has started. Yes, they felt that there was quite some mistrust. And I think that we'll have to take it from there because the visit of President Mahama has raised the trust between Ghana and these countries. And I think that in that perspective, Ghana has a big role to play. There were certain things, that were said there which I might not want to refer to. But we give the impression that, they are very happy that they have at least one president that they can trust.
And that's why many believe that President John Dramani Mahama should now serve as the bridge between the Sahelian states and ECOWAS, and possibly explore bringing these countries back into ECOWAS. Is that far-fetched to achieve?
Well, that will come with time. And we have to take notice of the fact that they have just left ECOWAS. And they have said that they are not going back to ECOWAS under the current circumstances. They are from the Alliance of Sahelian States. Now, let's see how engagement can, shape that. Because as we engage, as we address the grievances that made them leave ECOWAS, if we are able to surmount those grievances, why not? But we have to remember that these countries have made their sovereign decision to leave ECOWAS. And there is no other country that can compel them. We can only discuss the issues and find common ground, which might facilitate, some arrangement by way of coming back or negotiating or a certain relationship. But nobody in my thinking, nobody is able to compel them after they have made a sovereign decision that they are leaving ECOWAS, that they must come to ECOWAS based on this and that condition.
Well, away from the class action on ECOWAS, we have a country to protect as well. Our interests should also be paramount.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm concerned about what's happening up north, our borders. Terrorism is on the rise. We have socio-economic issues. I want us to split these issues up. Let's start off with food security. Burkina Faso took a decision to ban exports of some grains out of their region for now. Did that come up in the discussions? How are we going to ensure that we still keep that corridor running? Because we need those food producers coming from the north.
Yes. You know, self-preservation is where it all starts. And therefore, like President Mahama said, you know, he was looking at the bilateral relations. And this was the issue of food security was discussed. And I think that has been resolved. You know, there is a common understanding, you know, to ensure the free flow of persons and, you know, goods and services. So I think
so those differences have been
ironed out. I think that President Mahama has, you know, effectively ironed that out, and further discussions between the stakeholders from the two countries will actually, you know, concretize what needs to be done.
Because if that's not settled, we're setting that the effects will be very dire on us.
That's true, and I think that is settled. For instance, there was a situation of some 23 and then 8 trucks of beans that were seized. You know, the 23 trucks have been released, and they have assured President Mahama that the 8 will also be released very soon. You know, the issue of some like share nuts that we import from Burkina. Burkina has, you know, placed a ban on the exportation of share nuts, and that affects us a lot because we have a lot of you know, processing capacity here. That was discussed, and they have come to, you know, a solution of that. So, like I'm saying, the stakeholders will look at it and, you know, get it to actualization.
But one thing one thing they cannot guarantee for us is protecting us in terms of the growth in violent extremism activities in the Sahelan region. What sort of collaboration are we going to see now, knowing that whatever Burkina does in terms of its security decisions, or perhaps in the entire AES region, could affect relatively stable countries such as Ghana?
That was also discussed extensively, and you know.
Someone like you, Media, say Obejope, like na subscribe to a POG political media to and tempana Obejope or subscription na o messy a lot about Ghana. I am on your same Sema Union baby as a POG political media so, and I also own social media come who the echo and the bar I want my Ghana I am on your same. Now in so much as it to be come here, say ECOWAS, a media, and also a boa, a amaya, or was organization, Savia, a country view, say on here, and also like some resource via a year, a Kubata and share, Emma, other countries, no, a suit to war at a boa, ASR, mine, and so mo, enya, a mona, norms original monaswa, normal so Aritania, and so much here, ASR, a canon. Now, we not a year, Mentimwasi a buyer, a year. Former presidents be ana dada countries be an almost share a sakubata and say a quite bonia almost a country in a far so and I'm so ma Ranto where be an say and Akuffo be a general brand a coup editia or mutu or mono. Almost by Tanas no more sure who say a ECOWAS no and shed that a near BBA emphasis some more a year. Country no nisanti omutri omo the free ma and also akoye and sembibra and also a year ECOWAS and Kubata internasia almost eternasi bobo sa and say measures better also na yeti in sem no but that's it.
Going forward, the experts on both sides are going to sit down to look at what exactly needs to be done, and that will be addressed. It's an area of concern. How do we cooperate on the issues of prevention of violent extremism and countering, you know, terrorism? What exactly can Ghana bring to the table? Those are the things that me and you should be thinking about and contribute to the experts who are going to sit down and discuss the details.
Ambassador, we are looking at the way out and the way forward. Going forward for President Mahama, what should be paramount for him? You serve obviously in the AES region. There's also ECOWAS to satisfy because that's been our long-standing multilateral platform for the West Africa sub-region. How would you want the president to now approach these two emerging blocks that we will find ourselves in between?
I think the president is very clear and has been very clear in all that he has been saying about how he wants to approach this. The first thing is self-preservation. The bilateral relations that Ghana has with all, whether in AES or in ECOWAS and whatnot. So our self-preservation is important. Our national interests have to come to the fore. So the bilateral relations, route is one that is key. Oh yes, once we have built trust, with bilateral relations, we can begin to look at, the issues of how AES relates to ECOWAS and things like that. Already we remain members of ECOWAS. And like President Mahama said, engaging these leaders has given him further insight into what exactly the issues are. And he will carry this to his other peers, in ECOWAS, and they will have discussions along those lines, and I think that will inure also to...
And personally, having toured this region, do you feel that there's a lot more that those of us in coastal West Africa have not paid attention to, or, giving them ears on?
Well, I think that sometimes there is a certain misconception that terrorists are in armored vehicles and driving towards the sea. It's not exactly. Terrorism, this whole thing starts in local communities, and they start with livelihood issues and things like that. And I think that Ghana has been doing very well. If you look at our framework for preventing violent extremism and countering terrorism, you can say the focus is on human security, communities and individuals first, so that whatever grievances are coming from communities need be addressed so that they don't explode into extremism and violent extremism. And that is our forte. So I think that we'll be bringing that up in our relations and discussions with our neighbors, so that we look at those communities from which there have been grievances that have escalated into violent extremism. How do we address those and things like that? So I would say that we shouldn't be too worried here. The important thing is engagement. We will have to engage with them, share intelligence, and the experts know what to do on their line by way of countering violent extremism. But the issues of governance deficit, is at the head of it.
Right. One more issue before we go. The decisions, future ones that AES will be taking. They've announced, for instance, plans to have their own passport. If that happens, free movement of people across, the borders will be a challenge. How do we...
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay, but how do we plan to get out of that web if that happens?
There is a plan. There are planned engagements between AES countries and ECOWAS. Now, they are very clear that getting out of ECOWAS is un chemin de non retour. It's like a path of no return. They have made that very clear. So what we need to look at is, how do we get ECOWAS to engage with the AES countries on the issues that there are? For instance, right now there are various AES country, citizens who work for ECOWAS.
Yeah.
And their countries are no more members of ECOWAS. So what do we do? See?
Yeah.
Now, what about, the 1979 Protocol on Freedom of Movement, within ECOWAS, such that you can just take your ID card, your West African card, and go to Togo and things like that? Can they still? So these are issues that need to be discussed. So definitely, this needs engagement with ECOWAS. And I think that President Mahama has made that clear, that he will facilitate that engagement, so that the issues, can be addressed. Because if you just leave it and you are not going to, get an engagement between ECOWAS and what do we do? What about the freedom of movement, like you are saying? What about the freedom, the movement of goods and services? And for us in Ghana, bilaterally, that is going to really hurt us. Right. So we have started our engagement. We are getting, assurances of freedom of movement, because we are allowing them to move in here. They are allowing us to move in here. But how do we make it an ECOWAS thing so that ECOWAS citizens across board could move into AES countries, and AES citizens across the world could move into ECOWAS countries and do, normal business without any problem.
Finally, the issue about trust, and that's been the concern if you engage all, experts, security analysts to say, well, can we really trust these Saharan countries? And these are military rulers, first of all. And beyond that, we've heard, for instance, the likes of former President Nana Addo Akuffo report to the US that, for instance, the Burkina Faso Authority, the military regime was giving way to mercenary forces such as Wagner to operate at our northern borders. You've heard these claims. Can we really trust these leaders?
Well, I think that we'll have to look at this from the issues of sovereignty. When there is a sovereign state, then the decisions that that sovereign state makes, are each sovereign decisions. Other sovereign states would not go and dictate to them, what to do. So we have to look at it from that perspective. We have a president of Burkina Faso. We have a ruling, government in Burkina Faso, and they have made certain decisions, for Burkina Faso. We are Ghana. So we have to look at that. Some time ago, President Bill said, it's more profound than people just thought it was. Yes, you can discuss the issues, but you know that you don't make the decision. They make the decision. So if you're talking about trusting them, what I will tell you is that you have to engage them. You cannot, say that you can't trust them, so you go and hide somewhere and leave them alone. You have to engage them. And well, it is their sovereign decision to decide who helps them to fight terrorism. So if they decide that they're going to approach some particular country to help them fight terrorism, it is their, sovereign decision. And Ghana can do very little, about that. So that is what I would say. We need to be careful with these things when it comes to sovereignty, right. Because they are making their sovereign decision. And I think that we will have to respect that. For instance, the sovereign decision that they have made to leave ECOWAS is their sovereign decision. You have to respect it. Right. You can only, engage and discuss the ramifications, the implications, and help them perhaps to see, where they need to make adjustments and where they need to reshape. But eventually they will make the decisions.
Medasi so Jebre now J Penny Edema the POG Air Political Air Media no Seyembra catching me free political news no any daily updates no and from go catch now so who net the ECOWAS a woman Ghana air man some subscribers dollar any day and will book once or message of drop subscription now I share enough of so answer so at me I can't no matter the echo or POG Air Media so now Pese ochire adwen so abetimi so abo e dey the comment section on we din komo on a POG Media man ti beba na yo so be ma hu e mo e me da se so Jebre na ka me e be se